Welcome to the Scalability Code, the podcast that helps you get out of the shit show and start growing your business. A few times each month, you'll hear stories and commentary from visionary entrepreneurs, EOS implementers, and fractional COOs about how they've taken businesses to level 10. And now, for your host, Matt Haney.
Hello there. My name is Matt Haney. I'm the host of the Scalability Code. And today we have special guest Shea Keats with us. Shea, tell us about yourself. Give us a little backstory and tell our listeners and viewers what we need to know about you.
Yeah, awesome. Well, my name is Shea. I'm the CEO of Breakaway Advising, and we are a company that offers fractional CFO services as well as controller services and bookkeeping, although bookkeeping tends to kind of come under the larger umbrella of everything else. As for myself personally, I've had a very varied career doing all kinds of different things, but mostly working with startups and small businesses and helping them, achieve their goals and get to build the lives and the businesses that they actually want and not that they think they should have.
There you go. Love it. Well, you and I play in similar sandboxes on a daily basis. We're dealing with small to mid-sized companies that are in some form of flux, right? I think as a business owner, I'm convinced you're always in some form of flux. You may be in the growth flux. You may be in the slowing down flux. There's always some element of change that we're dealing with, which is so cool because we use fractional CFOs and fractional accounting resources on a very regular basis with our clients. And I can tell you one of my favorite engagements to enter is with a fractional accounting resource that, genuinely gets the challenges that these businesses are going through, which is, I'm sure, something you guys deal with on a day-to-day basis. How long have you been doing this? First of all, how long have you been in this seat?
Breakaway is going into year 6. So we had our 5-year birthday in September. So we're 5.5, almost 6 years in. It's been a great journey. I don't know, any kind of specific.
So what is it? Let's say this way. What does your day-to-day look like? Who do you interact with and what are the challenges that you're dealing with?
Yeah, well, I think what's really interesting about Breakaway is that we are a franchised business model, and we didn't start Breakaway intending to be a franchised business model, but we discovered that this was going to be the best and the easiest way for us to live our core values, which is bring joy to accounting, or one of our number one core value is bring joy to accounting. So we said, okay, how can we serve as many clients and as many accountants who need this service as possible all over the country, really all over the world. And franchise business model was the way that we went. So that means that each of our advisors, is what we call them, our fractional CFOs, are actually franchisees. And I use this to answer your question, Matt, because we really think it's important that our fractional CFOs are business owners, right? This really makes us stand out, right, from these other fractional CFO services.
Absolutely.
Because you're coming alongside business owner to business owner. And at the end of the day, because I'm not employed by you and I'm not employed by anybody else, I can really give you, the brass tacks or whatever metaphor you want to use there. I can be really real with you and really help the business owner, or our advisors can help their business owners really make decisions that resonate.
That's awesome. So you founded Breakaway 6 years ago? Ish?
Yep.
And you're the crazy visionary founder that I deal with every day. Not crazy. Maybe you're not crazy.
So what's really interesting is that there are 4 of us that founded Breakaway.
Okay.
And I am really, it's, challenging sometimes to have 3 co-founders, but often really, really exciting. And I would say that Kristen Keats, and I will, full disclosure, yes, she is my cousin. No, it's not nepotism. I was already doing this. But Kristen and her friend Martin, who'd worked together and been friends for over 20 years at that point, were both at a transition point in their career where they were leaving traditional accounting roles. Martin was the CEO of a large regional firm. Kristen was a senior tax accountant, lots of exciting things going on. And they were like, oh, this is miserable. There has to be a better way. So they basically reached out to other people who they thought were innovative and doing interesting things in this space, including our other co-founder, Michelle Rose, who you've met.
Yes, she's awesome.
more. Yeah, she's amazing. We're so lucky. And out of all of those really cool people that Martin and Kristen reached out to, Michelle and I were the two that were in it for the long haul and were really excited and really took their vision and ran with it. And then after about 2 years, Kristen and Martin were like, hey, we're ready to grow our empire. And they went off to, Kristen has a boutique tax firm. There is an offshore services firm in Guadalajara, Mexico, a coaching services firm. So lots of stuff that they're doing with their larger investment company. And Michelle and I stepped in to serve both as founders and as our executive team full time at Breakaway. So yeah, that was about 3.5 years ago. And that was just a really exciting moment in the business because we were all in and giving it all of our time and our energy, and that's when we started to see some really great growth.
Which you don't have a traditional finance and bookkeeping background.
I don't, Matt. My joke is I'm not an accountant. I only play one on TV.
I love it because I so deal with people on a somewhat regular basis that are in a leadership capacity that may or may not actually have subject matter expertise in direct subject matter expertise in the business that they're in. And it's one of the questions that people ask us all the time as we grow firms and businesses is like, well, you're not from our industry. You don't know. And I'm like, you're right. And that's why you need a disinterested third party to come in and look at what you're doing, because I don't sit there and stare at the business every day, all day. How hard was it for you to come out of your world into a new world and be a founder or co-founder with, in this space?
With 3 accountants and then me.
Yes, you.
Well, I've been really lucky because, and one thing actually that I talk a lot about with my strategy clients that I work with one-on-one, but also I've been so blessed to have in my own business career is working with an incredible CFO. So just for myself, having Michelle right alongside me and being able to work together and have someone that I can go to and say, yeah, I do know how to read a profit and loss, but I'm going to ask you this question and maybe it's a little embarrassing, but it's okay. And I will say, just for anyone who is like, wait, but are your franchisees real accountants? Yes, all of our franchisees are real. Just me, this, is not. But again, accountant can mean a lot of different things, right? We're not talking about tax accountants here. We're talking about what we call operational accounting, which is very, very different. Although we love working with amazing CPAs from, again, all over the country. So for me, it's been really about, setting aside that ego. And I think it's really easy when you are a leader and you go into a situation and feel like you have to be the smartest person in the room and all the things, or else whoever they are, is going to come and take your business away and everyone's going to know that you're a fraud. But really being able to lean into my co-founders and say like, yeah, I'm not an accountant, but as you were saying, Matt, it allows me to give kind of an outside perspective to the way that they're going to approach the business as the subject matter experts. And also they teach me and I learn from them. And it really, again, I think on both sides kind of removes that ego that we have in business ownership.
Yeah, that's awesome. 50, how many? 50 franchisees? 50 something?
At about 45.
45.
Have 50 by the fall.
So you're the boss, but you have 45 bosses that you serve as franchisees. Yep. What a big responsibility to be a leader and a servant leader to the people that you work for and work with and work alongside. I've always admired franchisors because it's a big responsibility, and I have had a couple clients over the years that were in franchisee in different businesses, and I actually had a failed franchisee relation. I started a franchise. I was a franchisee and failed, which I was one of my favorite stories. But where I was going is like, do you get regular engagement interaction with 45 people that are in your network, and sort of what does that look like in terms of just getting in front of people and having conversations?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what most of my day is. And what's really cool about what we've built at Breakaway is, and we're very intentional in everything that we do. And we have a very lean team, and that is by design. So we've got our executive team, we've got our chief of staff, our sales director, and then we've got a couple junior staff members who really are holding up everything. The business would not run without our executive assistants. She's incredible. But, so thinking a lot about we want to be there for our advisors every day. So I show up for them in a couple different ways. First off, I'm just available on Slack. They know they can't get me like an immediate answer, but I'm always there. I try to respond within 24 hours, and I tell them if like something's on fire, just tell me it's on fire and I will drop everything to be there for you. But as we also like to say, this is not open heart surgery. Like there are really no accounting emergencies unless like the IRS is literally in your house taking your file. There are no emergencies. So I'm always there. I offer our franchisees, they can have formal coaching with me, and that's all included as part of their franchisee package. So
formal coaching, what does that look like? What does a formal coach look like?
I sit down on a regular basis with them. It's not just kind of one-off here or there. And I get to the heart of, okay, why are you having issues building your franchise, and how can we help you be more successful more quickly? So I work with certain advisors one-on-one. And then on top of that, we just offer a lot of education. I mean, we have a learning management library that has probably 300 hours of content in it. We do 2 to 3 live education sessions weekly. And then we have a lot of asynchronous videos and things that go out. But what's really interesting, Matt, is we are at this point of growth. And when you dig in it, and it sounds like you're familiar with the franchise space, they say this is it, right? You know, you're 45 to 50 franchisees, but when you get to 85 to 90 franchisees, that's a whole different ballgame. And you can't serve 90 franchisees in the same way that you serve 40. So what we're doing right now is how can we maintain the relationships and that feeling of community and all of those warm fuzzies that I say that with utmost respect. It's really the most important thing that we do is make sure everyone feels warm and fuzzy, but also know that I can't do one-on-one coaching with 90 people, or I can't do one-on-one I can't answer everybody's messages. So right now that's what we're working on, and something that we're looking forward to is how do we communicate and stay really close to kind of our core and our values and the feeling and the brand, but also make it truly scalable, which here we are on the Scalability Code talking about it.
I see it every single day with companies that are growing, because most people don't walk into a business when there's 1 or 2 people. They're walking into a business at some point that has systems and process, well, albeit as simple or not as it would be. But the point is going from 2 to 4 and 4 to 12 and 12 to 24, and all of a sudden there's 48 people in the company and there's 100. It's like the dynamic changes, and the founder and CEO generally gets further and further away from those first few people that they started the relationship with or the business with. It is incredibly difficult, but it's reality. And you and everyone does the best they can to make sure that you keep those relationships and keep your core values out in front, and making sure that you're hiring and firing on those core values. And I'm just, in the limited time I've known you, I can see that is something that you really focus on, is making sure you put the right people in the organization, or the right franchisees that are going to be part of the ongoing solution and not part of the problem, as I say. But kudos to you for that awareness and realizing that going from 45 to 90 franchisees is going to be a change, and you'll get there. You'll get there.
And I think what's really interesting, Matt, is, Michelle and I went to a conference last year, and it was kind of our first experience at a franchise specific conference. And one of the speakers was talking about, in franchising, your first, I don't know, let's say 15 franchisees are going to still be innovators themselves. So can be really frustrating because they're pushing back on you. They're pushing back on you about every little thing. And we definitely experienced that. And now with kind of this next set, they're still brilliant. They're still business owners. They're still strategic and all of those things, but they are much more apt to adopt without asking the questions. So, which is beautiful, right? But it also puts the pressure on, okay, man, my processes and systems and brand better be perfect, because they're going to take it and they're going to execute it perfectly.
Right. The first 15, you were busy, building the boat while you were sailing it. Now the boat is sailing. It's in great paths. There's some choppy waters, but they're buying a process and a system. Whereas, those first few, you're kind of figuring it out as you go along to a certain extent. Obviously, you have some structure in place once you go pull the FDD and do those things. So,
and all that fun paperwork. So great.
You are listening to the Scalability Code. I'm your host, Matt Haney, founder of Sinclair Ventures, and we help visionary entrepreneurs like you get out of the shit show and focus on growing your business. We offer fractional COO and leadership coaching services that free up that brain of yours to focus on what's next. Learn more about us at sinclairventures.com. Now back to it. Let me ask you this. I like to always ask these questions. I don't know if you know this. I'm a big fan of EOS, which is the Entrepreneurial Operating System, which is are you guys familiar?
We're familiar. We have some amazing referral partners like yourself that are EOS implementers. And I will say, I'm making sure I say the right book, not Traction, Rocket Fuel.
Rocket Fuel.
So instrumental in my life personally, because once I realized I was a visionary and not an innovator, I was like, where wish I'd done this 10 years ago.
Yeah, where were you 10 years ago? Well, what as part of our weekly meetings with all of our leadership teams and the EOS methodology, you basically spend 60 minutes a week as a group, as a leadership team, solving key issues in the business.
Yeah.
Have you met with your leadership team this week, your internal team?
So we have our check-in tomorrow at 11, I think.
I'm going to put you on the spot. Give me what do you have any issues on that list that you're going to address, and again, you obviously share what you're comfortable sharing, but you can preface it however you need to. But what do you hope to accomplish tomorrow in that stand up or your check-in? And what's a key issue that you guys are solving?
So I think a good one is with our internal accounting teams. We've got two incredibly brilliant young accountants, and they're from our Guadalajara team. Just amazing young women, but they are young, right? And it's their first time kind of tracking their hours and dealing with billable hours. And billable hours aren't something we do externally, but we do a little bit of it internally because they're providing work to our advisors, and we need to, recoup that from our advisors. And there was a little bit, they had a very clear KPI that they were supposed to hit, and they didn't hit it. But what was more concerning about that was that it wasn't communicated. So we are working right now to figure out, and again, they're brilliant. They're doing the best that they can. So I think our leadership team and our senior team is thinking about, gosh, where did we fall short in either communicating with them what we needed or making them feel like it wasn't a safe space for them to communicate to us.
Right.
So I want to know what I can do better to just avoid that in the future, because it's not that they're not doing great work. They definitely are.
So do they have any are they aware of this is coming up tomorrow? Do they know that this is the topic of conversation?
They are not aware.
The only reason I ask is and which is great. You're not the first person. It happens to me every week, but I think it's like managing expectations. Oh my gosh. I bet I say it 700 times a day, just making sure that, people understand what's expected of them. And they obviously, do they enter their own KPI? Are they tracking it themselves, or are you tracking it internally?
They're tracking it themselves and then reporting it to us.
So they're punching in whatever the KPI is into the reporting mechanism.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Which is great. So they're aware. They're not going to be surprised by the fact that they haven't hit the metric, whatever the metric is, and what level of on or off track it is.
They're very aware of that.
So that's good. So kudos to you and the team for setting a metric and actually having them punch in the number, because so many people use a system or a process to track it, and they say, "Oh, Shea, you were a 4 this week and you were supposed to be an 8." It's like, well, I didn't know that. It's like, well, if you would have punched the number in, you would have known. So getting that accountability by entering the number is something that we always try to teach our leadership teams, is that the first step in holding someone accountable is having them own the number, whatever that is, whatever the metric is. So good for you. And let's see. So what would a successful takeaway look like after this? You talk through this issue, and you have a plan as to what resolution looks like? Or are you pushing this out to the team and saying, hey, you guys come back to us with what solve looks like?
Well, I think for we're very clear on what the solve is going to look like, is that they need to be confidently and accurately checking their hours. So I think tracking their hours.
Yeah.
If they came out of that meeting tomorrow, really understanding what that means, and when we say track your hours, now we thought we were clear about this, but maybe we weren't.
Right.
So I'm taking that on myself, but wanting to be really clear that tracking your hours means the time you're doing the work, the time that you're talking with the franchisee. If you have to ask Michelle a question about an accounting conundrum, don't ask me, but ask Michelle that question, then that all gets tracked, not just the time that you're in there reconciling the books. But so if they can really walk away understanding that and also feeling secure that, even if I'm coming in and maybe this is an issue that happens more for women leaders than male leaders, but that I'm not mad at them. It's not that I think they're bad at their job, but I am probably going to use my mom voice. Like, it's going to come out. I'm going to be like, guys, like, not acceptable.
Come on.
Yeah.
One of the things I say to folks is there's a difference between working on the business and in the business. And sometimes, and in your circumstance, those are all billable to somebody, right? But so you've just got to remember, when you're working in it, it's to one person. When you're working on it, it's to another person. But every bit of that time is a billable moment to someone, which is fascinating. Well, you're going to have to come back and tell us about the solve that you came back with, because it's always fascinating for me to get to look into these different businesses and have conversations with entrepreneurs that are struggling with how to solve issues and how to voice issues, and making sure that there's a platform or a place for people to share all of the different things that they're coming across. So do you have like an internal, like a parking lot, or do you use some sort of technology platform on the franchisor side that you guys are tracking all of the issues or challenges that you're struggling and moving through as a group? How do you track that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say we don't have anything fancy right now.
Yeah,
I mean, we have the incredible chief of staff, and she keeps everything. And she's basically has a Google Doc where it all goes in there. She's tracking it. She's following up on it. We also use Asana for a lot of these things. That's where people are going to actually be reporting, their progress report, basically.
Love it. Yeah, it's interesting. I was working with a client last week, and she did a deep dive into some of her direct reports. It's a smaller business. They're actually in the content production business, and they produce content for all these different things. And everybody was just misaligned. And it wasn't because people weren't trying. It's not because they're not capable. Shea, they literally had 4 different places they were working, and nobody knew what the hell went where. Yeah. And it was like, well, we've got this and that. And I'm like, give me the one single source of truth for all of this stuff. Well, it's Google Sheets. I said, okay, because earlier it was Slack. Well, it's not Slack. It's actually Monday.com. And I'm like, time out. If you don't know where all of this shit lives, then nobody else does. Yeah. So we were able to sort of back it up and figure out what that was. And that simple thing, she was like, you're right. And then it's not that I was right. I was just an outsider. And I was able to share some perspective that the miscommunication was just because of a lack of common understanding. I said, yeah, you can link to things inside there. You don't have to have it be, everything, but it's like, if people know where everything lives, they're going to be, they're going to be a lot more excited to work on challenging projects every single day. Okay, let me ask you another question.
Okay.
If you wake up in January of 2026,
okay,
how will you will, I promise you're going to do it. Do you think your entire team knows what success looks like between now and then?
I would say yes, but I always, it's really interesting, Matt. So you're my 5th call of the day today, and I've had the same conversation with every single person I've met with, from clients to my team, and that is, we can say that we think that we're clear, and I think I am clear. But if the people that I'm talking to are telling themselves a different story about whatever I, as the leader, have labeled success is, then we're going to have a really hard time measuring if we're actually successful. So I think, when we go into our all hands meeting tomorrow, we've dubbed 2025 as the year of returns, right? So we have spent 5 years, right? Takes 5 years to be an overnight success, or whatever that phrase is. So we're we've done a lot of work. We don't need to innovate a ton more right now. We just need to make this work and, start, getting those returns back on this investment
you've made. Yeah. Well, I ask you that question not because it's you, but just because I asked that question to everybody, and you're not alone in that. I mean, you asked me the same question. I can tell you, I think. Yeah. But what I'm going to do now, after saying I think and making that funny face, is the next time I have a conversation with my team, I'm going to say, hey, are we aligned? Are we on the right page? Because I think this is what success looks like. And for me, it means getting my team to take more of the initiative, not because they don't want to. It should be me letting them take more and me trusting that they can do it. Not that I would distrust them, but as you're growing a business, you know this. You have to delegate and elevate and continue to work and build. And so kudos to you for saying you think you know. And obviously next time you have this conversation with somebody, you'll say, I'm going to make sure I know. And I'm going to continue to bring that to the top of the surface and ask people, am I clear? Are we clear? And I think that's
story. What's the story there? Like, it's one thing for me to say, what do you think the goal is? And they'll say that we get a return. Okay, well, what does that mean to you? I really want to hear, and I'm going to dive into that, I think, starting tomorrow. So what's the story you're telling yourself about your role in that success?
Yep. Love it. Okay, a couple more questions. What do you do outside of work? What makes life fun when you're not chasing accountants all around?
Oh my gosh. Well, I live in the Pacific Northwest, so I feel really lucky to be so close to so many incredible hiking trails and wineries. And I just got a new book that's called Wine and Hiking, and it gives you like hiking paths so you can hike from the trailhead will take you past multiple wineries. So I'm excited to do some of those this summer. I have 2 stepkids, so there's a lot of running around to lacrosse meets and out things. And I'm a crazy dog mom. I love my dog.
Well, what kind of dog? You have a mutt?
A mutt, but she's
Love it.
50% Airedale.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah. So people always come up to me and they're like, where did you get a mini Airedale? And I'm like, oh, this dog was not on purpose. This is an accident.
This is not the way we drew it up, the way it was drawn up.
No, but she's very cute and I love her so much.
That's so fun. What else? Any questions for me? Any thoughts? I mean, challenging, things you're dealing with?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, it's interesting to say, I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about what you were just alluding to is like, how do you give your really team permission to take initiative? I kind of hear about how.
Well, here's the thing. I always tell people that I need accountability more than anybody. And saying, being vulnerable and being candid and saying, hey, this is what I need help with. And if you're seeing me, slip into the ways that of 7 years of doing it one way, then please feel comfortable and confident speaking up. Because if I'm letting myself down, I need people around me to help. And, sometimes that means not including me in things. And sometimes that means not adding me to the invite and not checking my schedule. There's perfect examples of times to beg for forgiveness instead of asking for permission. And after I've worked with, some folks, specifically Ashley, who helps me run my practice, I've worked with her for 2 years. Like, I trust her. She gets it done. And I need to just let her do more and push more to her and trust that she can figure it out, because she has and does and will. Yeah. So I think I just need to be more vulnerable. I need to be honest and say, hey, you guys can take this and run with it. And I trust if the outcome's not perfect, it'll be better than me not doing it at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. We did a lot of work around progress over perfection last year. And we said, you just get it 60%, 70%.
Absolutely. Because the reality is, most of the time when you get it to 60%, you're going to change it. So it's like, let's not get something fully baked only to change it after it's fully baked. Let's test and measure and change, because that's what we get to do. Well, I'm looking very much forward to joining you guys later this summer, September, at your annual conference. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. And selfishly, I'm going to get to come to the Pacific Northwest in what is the best month that the Pacific Northwest can offer. I think September up there is fantastic.
It's so beautiful. So
wonderful. Well, thanks so much for joining us. And
thank you.
I look forward to getting to know you and your team much better. And thanks for taking some time.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt.
All right. Talk to you soon. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Scalability Code. If you made it this far, please follow the show on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Let's get out of the show together. We'll see you next time on the Scalability Code.